Hi everyone, how's it? So we've been in Dubai for a while now, a few weeks, and it's only recently that we decided to rent a car. Um, it is much more convenient to have rented a car, and we enjoy driving in Dubai. But the reason for this little video is to give you my insight on what it is like to drive in Dubai, the do's and don'ts, and probably a few tips so that you can be comfortable with driving in Dubai and enjoy it as much as we are currently doing. So, firstly, when you rent a car, don't be nervous. It's quite a difficult um, task to change your mindset from ordinary driving in South Africa as we do, uh, with our cars being right-handed, to adapting to driving on the left or with a left-handed car, and more specifically, the manner in which you drive here in Dubai is obviously different to that of how we drive in South Africa. So once you understand the idea that you're driving in a different place, in a different kind of a car, you need to come to terms with it. There's no getting away with it. There's no easy way to get around it. You just need to accept that you're driving a left-hand car and you got to drive. But before you get behind the wheel, my suggestion to you is download an app called Waze, W-A-Z-E. This app was recommended to us by fellow family friends who are currently staying in Dubai. And I give this to you on good authority because it helped me when I started driving here in Dubai, and I'm sure it will help you. So download the app Waze. It's quite informative. It's quite precise. The maps are actually more precise than what Google Maps is. And the nice thing about Waze is that it shows you each lane as it appears on the road. So for instance, here in Dubai, some of the highways have up to 7 lanes. So Waze will tell you which lane would be the ones to drive on, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4 going in the direction that you're going, or if you branching off, taking an off ramp, which of the lanes are turning. And most likely in Dubai, all the lanes would be as correct as how they appear on Waze. So download the app before you start driving, because this will really help. Once you start driving, you need to understand that you need to adhere to the rules of the road, and more so once you're in Dubai. I say this because when you commit a traffic offense in Dubai, the penalties that you get are more than what we've experienced in South Africa. For instance, if you're driving over the speed limit, marginally, there's no getting around that. There's no applying for the ticket to be reduced. The fine, as it would appear, would be 650 dirhams minimum. So if you count that, 650 dirhams times 4 is around 2,500 rand for just going marginally over the speed limit. So if you're driving on the freeways, generally the rule of thumb is whatever the speed limit on the boards are, you allow the 20-kilometer grace over and above that. For instance, if you're driving on the freeway and the board says 120 kilometers an hour, your grace is up to 140 before you get fined for exceeding that. But what I've done since we've been here, or since we've been driving, is I've stuck to 100 or 120 depending on what the sign says, and I haven't gone over that, nor do I want to give myself the comfort of going into the 20-kilometer excess, because the minute you obviously let your guard down, then you're going to look for trouble if you go over the speed limit involuntarily by, just by driving a little fast. So take things easy, don't speed. Everywhere you go in Dubai, you're going to get to where you need to go. If you want to go, if you want to be there a little earlier, leave earlier. Don't speed, don't rush. It's just not worth it, and it's not worth the fine. When you're driving, you must understand that because it's a left-handed car, your blind spots are both on your left-hand side, which is odd because we're so used to looking right. And you have to look right also because when you're taking the off-ramps are on the right-hand side, but you're going to be in a middle lane or third lane or fourth lane, depending on how many lanes there are. And ultimately, when the off ramps do appear, Waze will tell you ahead of time that in 1 kilometer you need to turn right and take the off ramp. But the off ramp could either be 2 lanes, could be 3 lanes, you never know. So the thing is, just mentally prepare at least a kilometer before the off ramp to start coming from the left hand side to the right hand side. And eventually, when you do see it appear on the app to say that now you need to turn in 500 meters, it will appear to you how many lanes are turning, if it's 1 or 2. So at least you'll have enough time. Because what I did the first few days was I took it for granted that, you know what, it's still 1 kilometer. I'll turn when the time, or I'll change lanes when the time comes. And in Dubai, people are impatient. No one's going to give you way. It's not like, you know what, I'll put my indicator on and someone will slag and give me way. It's here, you've got to be spontaneous, you've got to do it. If you don't turn or if you don't change a lane, no one's going to give you that opportunity. So rather change lanes timelessly. And in most instances, when you come off the highway, where you need to go in a suburban area or in like a residential area, it's generally the last lane that goes into that area. So you have to go all the way to your extreme right and then branch off. And what happens in this instance is you're coming from a highway where the speed limit is 120. Immediately when you take the off ramp, it drops to around 80 and then drops to 60 and could drop to 40 as well. So you need to be quick when you take the off ramp to adjust your speed immediately, because like I said, if you don't, you can get fined for exceeding the speed limit. And what I found even is that when you take the off ramp, generally there would be cars which could cross you because they would be coming in or would be entering this suburban area, this residential area as well. And that might be 2 lanes coming, like 1 lane from them coming in and 1 lane from you getting off. And you might need to change another lane to turn into that area. So you gotta just gauge as you're going off where your car is, where the other cars are. Check your right hand side because that's obviously where the cars would be coming from. And yeah, you'll enter the residential area and you'll be fine. Another thing that you need to bear in mind when you are driving, and the most tricky part about driving here in Dubai, is not getting on the freeways and driving or going between the malls and your hotel. There are certain instances where the roads, especially not the freeway, but the other main roads, would allow you to drive for a certain distance, and all of a sudden you'll come to a circle where the circle would be a 3-lane or 4-lane circle. Most of them are 3 lanes. And what happens is you're driving on now a 5-lane road or a 4-lane road. Somehow it comes down to 3 lanes as you approach in a circle, probably an off-ramp you would have passed. The best thing to do is to stick on the center lane. I've been told this by our family friends here, and I tried to practice it as much as I could, because the minute you're on the wrong lane, for instance, if you're on the far right, naturally that as you enter in the circle would go with the circle. There'd be an exit where you can turn right, be in the first exit, or if you're taking a second exit, you will obviously be able to turn right in that lane and it will be fine. If you're in a middle lane as well, you'll come in, but now remember, if you're in the middle lane, the person who's on the right hand lane won't expect you to turn right, because remember, only the right lane is allowed to turn right, especially when you enter in a circle. So if you're in a middle lane and you decide, oh shucks, I need to take the first exit, and this guy is taking the second exit, you're going to meet up in an accident or you're going to cause an accident. So know where you want to get out. Once you enter in a circle, know which know where you leave in, whether you leave in on the first or the second one, because that will give you a chance to see where you need to be within these three lanes. And for instance, if you're on the left lane and you enter in the intersection and you enter in the circle, there's no way you can take the first exit. There's no way you're going to take the second exit, because both the first lane who's turning right at the first exit or the second lane who's going to be turning right at the second exit expects you to continue with the circle and probably exit on the third exit if there is one. So if you enter and you're not going on the first exit, which is the first one, you're not going on the second one, but all of a sudden you decide, hey, you know what, this is the exit for me. The person who's in the second lane would expect you to have already begun going with the circle to the third exit, and if you cut in, you're going to cause an accident. So always stay in a second lane if you can, because that's the safest, because generally most of the exits that you need, or if you are continuing straight in a circle and you're not going off, rather just stick to the center lane, because that will allow you the safest passage through the circle and continuing down the road. So circles are a bit intimidating, but yeah, once you understand where you need to be, or if you're not taking any exit, just stick to the middle lane and you'll be fine. The third thing, and when you are going to a certain place, most malls offer free parking, but it's always advisable to check with the security or with, you'll see the guys who assist to wash your car. You can probably ask them whether there's a fee to be paid for parking. But if you're not parking at the malls, if you're parking in the normal residential areas, take for instance, you're in Alberta and you need to go to a mosque or you need to go to a local restaurant. If you're parking in one of the parking bays, you'll see a little orange board will have the zone that you're in, probably 3 numbers and an alphabet, for example, 373C or 373D. That would mean that by parking in this parking or in this zone, you need to pay for parking. So there's 2 ways of doing this. You either SMS the number that appears on the on this orange board with your car registration, and they'll subtract the parking from your airtime amount if you have any airtime. And if you don't have airtime, then you look for the little blue pay station. The pay station will allow you to purchase or pay for a receipt, pay for how many hours you are there, and they'll give you a receipt. And yeah, please make sure you put sufficient time, because if you're paying with your cell phone, normally what happens is, if you're approaching the end of the 2 hours that you paid for, you'll get a notification to say, do you want to extend? If you're in a mall and or if you're eating and you don't want to go back to your and you don't want to be disturbed, all you can do is extend on your cell phone again for another hour or so, and you'll be fine. But if you've paid at the space station, make sure you at least put an hour extra, because to go back to that pay station or to go back to where your car is sometimes might be a little far from where you are in that area. So it's always advisable to put an extra hour. It costs about 2 dirhams an hour, and I think for 3 hours it's 5 dirhams, so that's about 20 rand for 3 hours, and it's sufficient time if you are going for a meal or just walking around and all of those things, then you should be fine. And apart from the parking, apart from driving on the road, one thing to take note is that when you're approaching a robot, please do not consider jumping that robot at any expense. If you see okay, how it works here, there's no orange uh, in a few seconds and then red. It will be green, and then before it turns to red, the green will start blinking, which would tell you that, listen here, you need to stop, slow down, or at least stop, and then it will go to orange for or yellow for few seconds, and then immediately red. So in that whole thing, if you enter in, for instance, a robot that has a red light, and if you entered while it was green blinking, there's every chance that jumping that robot could cost you getting a ticket if the red light flashes you. So rather stop. You have no reason to rush, nor does the person behind you have reason to rush you. So make sure when you're approaching a robot, rather slack a bit, slow down as much as you can, so that you can time whether the robot is going to change. And it happened to us. Well, we never got a ticket yet, or we never jumped a robot yet, but so many times it happens that you end up at the robot, and before you think of proceeding, you already see it green or blinking green. So I prefer stopping, and that's the safest. Once you stopped at a robot, there's no time for you to daydream, because the minute you're going to daydream, the person behind you is anxious to obviously get going. So expect a person to hoot at you if the thing changes green, and in that 1 or 2 seconds you're busy doing other things, you're going to get a hoot, a blast from behind to say that wake up and proceed. So always be aware of your surroundings, always be alert when you're driving, and yeah, you should be fine. One other thing is, the roads tend to be confusing when you approach in certain residential areas. For instance, when we went to JBR, we got off the highway, off the freeway, and we went under a tunnel. Immediately when you go under a tunnel, the speed limit drops to about 40 or 60, so be wary of that. And as you're coming out of the tunnel, immediately the lanes become 2 or 3. Ways would tell you that, listen here, you turn in, but it happens fast sometimes. So just try and anticipate what your next move is going to be, especially when you enter in a tunnel, you're coming out of a tunnel, because you're going to have to change in lanes. And in this instance, instead of taking an off-ramp right, which is a normal thing that we would do when we get off a freeway, we have to turn left. So 9 times out of 10, you will be turning right to get off the highway, but there are instances where you would be turning left, as was the case when we went to, not to JPR, when we went to Jumeirah. And immediately when we took the off-ramp on this side, the speed dropped to about 60, and we saw a big sign or robot saying, tram, beware. And at the robot was obviously there, but a distance before the robot would be a tram line, and there'd be a stop for you to stop. So you need to be careful, because if you see that robot, it might be green or it might be blinking green, and you're thinking, hey, I'm going to proceed. Here you have a tram that's a tram line, and you have a stop before. If you caught in between, or if the cops find you having gone over the stop sign, you're going to be in trouble again. So just be careful, drive slow rather, because by driving slow, you have enough time to check your surroundings, to see where you are, and yeah, to give you time to decide where you want to be and where you need to go. And lastly, when you're driving, just make sure that you take your time. Don't rush, don't do anything eccentric. If a person's hooting behind you for whatever reason, it could either mean that you're sleeping at a robot, or if they're not hooting at you, if you're hogging the fast lane, which is the far left lane, you'll see that the guys will generally drive up to your back and start flashing you. You would start to panic, because you want to know, oh shucks, what is this guy? Is he just a normal person? Is he a cop? What am I doing wrong? But generally, if you're in a left lane and you're driving slow, the guys behind you are going to flash you. But then in that panic of yours of trying to move out of the way, you might just swerve to the right hand lane, without checking your blind spot on this side, and you could cause an accident. So don't hog the left lane, because the left lane is always a fast lane. Even a second lane, for instance, I've been driving in second and third lane, and people were flashing me also. So it just depends who's behind you, and there's no reason for you to get angry, and there's no reason for you to begin road rage, because that fight, if you do have, and this is what we've been told, is a case that you'll never win, especially if you're in the wrong, or especially if you think you did something right and the police see it in a different way. Remember, Dubai, one thing you need to understand in Dubai is you've been watched all the time, everywhere. So for instance, when you're at the robots, when you're driving on the freeway, there are cameras, and how the police work here is that if an altercation occurs or if an accident occurs, they would go to the cameras and see who was in the wrong, and from their deduction of what happened, they either say you were at fault or they'd say the other person is at fault. And don't try and argue your way out of a situation, because you're in a foreign country. You don't want to do things which will upset the police officer. If you are in the wrong and they've told you in the wrong, accept it and move on. Don't try and fight the system, especially when it's not your country, because it's not worth it. Apart from all these, once you've overcome the initial fear of driving in Dubai, and once you continue driving as normal, you'll see everything becomes fine. We had no issues at the filling station. All the filling stations have people assisting you with filling petrol, so you don't have to do it. It's not self-service. It's like home, like South Africa. There's plenty of filling stations around, all on the highways. After every few kilometers, you'll see one. And though the rules are different in Dubai, we haven't tried Abu Dhabi, but we've been told that in Abu Dhabi, the rules are much more tighter in terms of speed limits and driving. So where Dubai gives you this 20-kilometer grace, Abu Dhabi is very precise. So if it's 100, it's 100. If it's 120, it's 120. There's no 20 plus like Dubai. So just bear in mind, Dubai is different from Abu Dhabi. I've told you what it's like to drive in Dubai. This is my experience from driving. If you feel there's anything that I might have forgotten, or if you want to share something from your personal experience, please let us know in the comment section below. And yeah, hopefully this would inspire you to want to rent a car the next time you do come, because taxis are expensive. I'll give you an example. The first day we spent close to 160 dirhams, 180 dirhams from the airport to where we needed to go, and whatever happened in between. So yeah, that was almost like 1,000 rand for our first trip from the airport. So taxis are expensive. If you're not considering taking taxis, the metro does work, but we just found that renting a car is easier, because the places that we need to go to and we like exploring, it just gives you that ease that when you go into a place, you don't have to do 10 things before to get there. Jump in a car, drive, and arrive at your place. That's the easiest. But yeah, if there's anything else that you need to know, or if you want us to elaborate on anything further, let us know. And we hope this would work for you, and hope you can take a few tips that we've gave you and heed, and maybe your next trip would be easier.